say good morning on eNCA, but it's not a good morning anymore, as of course you've seen. We've lost the Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. Nevertheless, you are watching Newslink here on eNCA. I'm Morena Mutupi. Let's have a look at your headlines. Tributes are pouring in for the Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. He passed away earlier this morning at the age of 90. We will be getting as much reaction as we possibly can this hour. Of course, Ndade Tutu dying at the age of 90, having lived a very long and fruitful life, dying at his home in Cape Town. He had been suffering from prostate cancer. President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed his sadness, saying that Ndade Tutu was a patriot without equal. He also describes him as a leader of principle and pragmatism who gave meaning to biblical insight. Ndade Tutu was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, of course, in 1984 for his role as a unifying leader in the campaign to end apartheid.
Thank you very much.
He was a man who knew how to laugh.
Hi, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What a kind boy.
Thank you.
And to cry. For decades, Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu was South Africa's moral compass.
Feeling of national euphoria that took hold in those early years of our democracy masked the necessity for us to follow through the work of healing a society battered and bruised by centuries of racial division and oppression.
The man fondly known as the Arch was born in Klerksdorp in the former Transvaal in 1931. His father was a teacher, his mother a cleaner and cook. A young Tutu used to go to white people's homes offering a laundry service. He would collect and deliver the clothes while his mother would wash them. Tutu wanted to become a doctor, but because of a lack of funds, studied to be a teacher. In 1955, he married Nomalizo Leah Shenxani, one of his father's pupils. 3 years after the introduction of Bantu education in 1953, Tutu abandoned teaching in protest. He went on to study theology and was ordained as a priest in the Anglican Church. In 1978, Tutu was appointed General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, leading the clergy in their opposition of apartheid. In the 1980s, Tutu earned the wrath of conservative white South Africans when he said that there would be a black prime minister within the next 5 to 10 years. His tireless fight for freedom was recognized in 1984 when he was awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize.
When you've been given the Nobel Peace Prize, it doesn't really belong to you, or in a way you can say it makes you answerable to the world. I mean, the world, as it were, has a piece of you.
Tutu was known for being fearless. In 1985, he and a fellow bishop saved a suspected police informer from being burnt to death in Duduza Township. Tutu pushed through a mob of angry youths and rescued the badly beaten man just as he was about to be thrown into his burning car, a petrol-soaked tire around his neck. In 1986, Tutu became the first black Archbishop of Cape Town, heading the Anglican Church in southern Africa. And then, finally, democracy. Tutu coined the phrase, the Rainbow Nation, his vision for the newly freed country.
Among Madiba's greatest gifts to South Africa was the lesson he taught us to see beyond pigmentation, beyond gender, beyond sexual orientation, beyond social status and religious belief, to acknowledge the worth of all people. That's where it begins.
A year after the 1994 elections, Tutu was appointed to lead the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He retired as Archbishop of Cape Town in 1996 to devote his time to this cause.
Beautiful land with its wonderful people of different races, cultures, and languages, so that it will be a land of laughter and joy, of justice and reconciliation, of peace and unity, of compassion, caring and sharing.
Since the demise of apartheid, Tutu has campaigned for gay rights, against the Iraq War, and former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe's regime, as well as climate change.
We have only one home. But this is the only home we have.
In 2007, the Arch joined a group of senior world leaders such as former President Nelson Mandela and former US President Jimmy Carter to form the Elders to promote peace efforts around the world. In May 2013, the Arch declared that he would no longer vote for the ANC, praising its role in freeing the country from oppression, but condemning it for not doing enough to fight inequality, violence and corruption.
I won't vote for them. That is something that I have said. And I say it with a very sore, very heavy heart. Because I have felt that on the whole, they have tended to be close to the kinds of things that we dreamt about.
Tutu had a close friendship with Nelson Mandela. When the former statesman died in December 2013, Tutu initially said he wouldn't be at the funeral because he hadn't been invited. Government denied this, and the Arch did attend.
Now I want to show the world, which has come out here to celebrate the life of an extraordinary icon. We want to say thank you to that world, but you must show that world that we are disciplined.
In that same year, the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation was established, focusing on youth development and social justice. He is survived by his wife Leah and 4 children: Trevor Tamsanqa, Tandeka Teresa, Nontombi Naomi, and Mpho, a reverend who left the Anglican Church because it wouldn't accept her because she's gay. Throughout his life, Tutu spoke out about injustice wherever he saw it.
In a small corner of the British capital is a peace garden in honour of Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. The garden was founded by Susanna Clark after discovering she'd bought the house where the Tutu family lived between 1972 and 1975. At that time, Desmond Tutu had been working as Director for Africa at the Theological Education Fund. In 2009, the Archbishop was asked to officially open the Peace Garden, which had been designed as a reminder of his links to London and his lifetime work towards peace.
It's beautiful. It's in a sort of teardrop shape, and it had lots of yew trees, high trees, in a sort of lovely shape with some meadow grass around it. But in the very centre, they've made the heart of it, is a lovely, beautiful white peace chair where you can sit and contemplate. It's a very little communal central area, and there's some little blocks, square blocks, where children can sit as well. And right in the very centre is the peace pole. And we have 3 different languages on there, and we have a lovely saying on the side, an enemy is a friend waiting to be made. But the whole vision behind it was a place which could be shared, very inclusive, wouldn't keep anyone out, has no barriers, it's sort of very open, but something that can be peaceful and enjoyed by just about everyone of every age.
The Archbishop was also invited back to his old house, just a short walk from the Desmond Tutu Peace Garden. The Clark family have fond memories of that day and the Archbishop's great sense of humour.
He was just such a delightful man. He was so ordinary. No airs and graces at all, did he, Bill?
No, I remember him from when I went to open the door, and he said to me, "Excuse me, sir," he said, "what are you doing in my house?"
Yes, he was so nice, and he loved looking round again and seeing it all, and he was obviously quite emotional about it, because when he lived here, his children, I think, were quite young, and those are the times that you have lovely memories from when your children are young, and it obviously affected him.
The house where the future Archbishop, his wife and 4 children lived in the 1970s is now owned by Laura Oxley. Laura works at King's College London, where Desmond Tutu studied in the 1960s, and knowing the history of the house was a major draw.
He was such an inspirational figure, and he it was a real beacon of light for social justice, and that's really important to me as well, and my work and in my studies as well. So I kind of feel that it's just really an honour to be able to live here in this historic place.
Back in the 1960s, and while studying in London, it was another part of the capital the future Archbishop called home, St Albans the Martyr Church in Golders Green.
I think he must have been looking for some accommodation. So I'm assuming what happened is letters came out, because letters in those days came out and said, have you got a flat for a young family to use while he's studying? And fortunately for us, we did have a curate's flat, and that's where he came to live. And his younger daughter was born there, of course. So he'd been doing some work in the parish to fill his time when he was here. So he'd be leading services, preaching, probably doing some visiting, although I wouldn't think a lot during the week, but mostly at the weekends.
This was the first time Desmond Tutu was curate to a mainly white congregation, and according to Reverend Rex, who met the Archbishop in 2009, his time as part of the community in London had a profound influence.
It was tremendous to hear him speak about it. He spoke about, this was probably the first time, he said, when he realised that not all white men were against him as a black man. And that helped him then, prepared him for dealing with post-apartheid South Africa. And of course, I think we were part of that. He also tells some funny stories where it says that whenever he saw a policeman, him and his wife would always go up and ask for directions, even if they were in North End Road here, just outside the church, because the policeman would say, "Of course, sir, of course, madam." And he wasn't expected to be addressed like that by a policeman, so they would always ask for directions. And another occasion when he was in the bank and somebody pushed in front of him, which I guess was a common experience for him back in South Africa in those days, and the teller said, "I'm sorry, that gentleman was in front of you," and pushed the other man back and let him go first. And these experiences seem to have really helped him realise to treat people as potential friends rather than potential enemies.
With strong links to London and many of the communities here, Archbishop Desmond Tutu's memory and legacy lives on.
He rose to the top in his church. He rose to the top in his country and in the world, getting the Nobel Peace Prize. He never changed. And I think ordinary people, in everyday living, I think they appreciate that more than anything.
His legacy will be that concern about peace for the future of people. But I think the legacy is also that you still have to fight. This world is all about fighting for the good things that need to be fought for.
A man of great truth, always spoke the truth. In the church we'd call him an apostle, which is a high office of the church, if you like, is somebody who's really anointed by God to speak truth to people with great authority. And there's no question that in my view, I'd say he was an apostle.
And they will be able to remember him and pay tribute to him here, a place he called home whilst away from his native South Africa. Natalie Powell, London.